Welcome back to the second episode of Flex and Facts. I'm going to introduce our guest first, a good friend of ours, Justin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
25 years, veteran, ex-military, major.
Yep.
We got an amazing story.
25 years, and that's summed up quite nicely in about 3 seconds.
We got some interesting stuff today. Gino Melito to my right. And
everyone.
Just a hi? That's it?
That's all I have to say today.
You've been rusty a little bit today.
I want to listen to what everybody
Go like this with your head. Shake it like this. You should go like this.
How about like this, like that? The dog, the little puppy dog behind the
And to
car.
my left, Joe Sabusco, who's wired today.
Oh, yeah.
How many
Ready to go.
How many espressos have you
About
had?
12.
Oh, my gosh.
Good to go.
Oh, wow. Well, we wanted to share with our listener, a good listener, some of the stuff that really goes into number one, the military, the obstacles, the experience, the stress. This is going to be really good. So you think you have it bad or you had it bad? Listen to this story. So maybe we'll just start off. You entered into the military right out of high school. Did you finish? You finished school?
I finished high school, but I was, at the recruiting center, like in my last year of high school. I sort of already knew what I wanted to do. My friends were trying to figure out what they were going to do at university, and I said, like, there's no way I'm doing this. I just whatever everyone else was doing wasn't for me.
Why?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew why. But all I know is I was in Army cadets when I was a kid. Loved camping, loved playing with guns, loved Army movies, loved playing with GI Joes, and realized, shit, they're gonna pay me money to do the stuff I love and go camping and play with guns and. When you're 17, 18, that's about as complicated as things are sometimes. They're going to pay me to do something that I would otherwise do for free. That's a pretty good start.
What was the calling, Justin, that first said, okay, I want to really, really do this, and here's the reasons why? Was there a call? Was there some kind of signal that told you that you wanted to be part of the Army? Because let's face it, at the end of the day, there's been a few wars that were not exactly...
He was in Afghanistan and Kuwait.
That's my point. Exactly.
So, no, it wasn't a calling. So... yeah, it was just an adventure. Like, it sounded really awesome. Sounded like a great challenge and a great adventure. Like, it was going to get me out of town. It was going to get me to cool places and seeing neat stuff. And I knew that I had sort of that toughness or that mental attitude that, like, I was going to be fine in the Army. Like, drill instructors, I knew, even if you watch, like, terrible Army movies, you sort of go, oh, my God, this got to be terrible. I knew it was going to be fine. It's just people yelling. Like, loud words don't hurt. I just knew I was tougher than most of the kids I knew. And it was a chance to go do something cool and fun. And then you sort of grow into it from there, right? As you get a bit older, you sort of, cross through your 20s and start becoming a bit more real. And the deployments start happening. Of course, like, I joined at a time where the big conflict in the world was in Bosnia and the Balkans, Yugoslavia. But all that stuff was ramping down. So it was a lot of peacekeeping. And the guys that, a couple of years ahead in high school that were reservists or whatnot, really all they talked about is barbecues and volleyball and 2 beers a day and hanging out at the beach.
So you did peacekeeping as well?
I didn't. I didn't get the chance. So I joined sort of at the end of that wave and before 9/11. So I sort of joined in between the two. So the Balkan conflict was tailing off. And really, it was just, figuring out what we're going to do next. And then I thought, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of training, going to Alberta, doing cool stuff with NATO, but mostly just training and maybe deployments and peacekeeping missions. Like, they're obviously flare-ups and stuff, the shoot-ups and stuff, but it's not high-intensity combat. And most of the troops that go on peacekeeping missions, obviously you're away from home and there's hardships with that. And, who knows what the living conditions are like, but it's not, it's not combat like we knew it. So really that never really crossed my mind. And then, well, we all know what happened at 9/11 when the towers came down. And by then I had reached at least a point in my career where I knew I was pretty good at what I did. Mm-hmm. I was pretty invested already. And I knew that, to oversimplify things, my parents started asking me, why are you going to Afghanistan the first time? I said, I'm pretty confident in my abilities. And if I don't go, they're going to send somebody who probably is, frankly, less good at it than I am. and that's all the reason I sort of need to go. And we sort of talked about it before. At the end of the day, it's a job. You know, I'm oversimplifying it, I'm sure, but
Well, did you know you're risking your life? I mean, this is.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
going
absolutely,
into a serious conflict,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's not something.
Of course
you
he
just
did.
wanna-
What do you think he's
of
going to
course,
do?
Of course,
Oh.
but
But it's a lot of
to
peacekeeping,
your
right?
point-
You're
to your point, you know,
yeah. You're a funny
I
guy.
had
but-
maybe
Well, a
7
fireman, is he going to combat the fire eventually? He's a fucking fireman.
But to
What'd you
answer-
expect?
Sorry, go ahead.
To answer your point, I had about 6 or 7 or 8 years to get to that point. So by the time it came,
What's the matter with this
it
guy?
just you're one day closer to realizing, one day closer to realizing, one day closer to realizing. Suddenly you're there going, well, of course I'm here. It's what I've been trained to do my whole career. But coming back to the firefighters, they train their whole lives to fight fires, and fires are devastating. They kill people. They destroy people's lives and livelihoods. But you won't find a firefighter who, after training, doesn't want to fight a fire.
Right.
You know, and that's sort of the catch-22 in the army is you spend so much time training, become really good at doing really bad things to really bad people, and then you go, well, is somebody going to take this weapon out of the case at some point and let loose on some bad guys? And you sort of realize, your background, Tony, you don't train to fight for 10 years and go, no, I don't really want to fight.
Right. That's true. You
So-
always have it in you. Well, you know what? We had a great lunch after hockey, and tell us about that experience and I mean the tragedy and everything you went through, because that was like I was just blown away by that story. I don't remember after
Yeah, I was
hockey,
there.
and
I remember
I think this
you
is a
told us
story
that.
that's like what the heck, like and the way you were expressing, that's all I kept remembering. I was like, this guy's unbelievable. You should write a book.
Yeah. So, you sign up to do that and you sort of face the potential consequences. And I don't know if we talked about it at lunch that day, but you sort of prepare for the worst. You go, like, we're going to war. I'm going to be a forward observation officer, joint terminal attack control. So I was going to be right up front with the infantry, with frontline troops, finding bad guys and bringing artillery, airstrikes, and helicopters to shoot, to kill the bad guys. To that, for that to happen, you usually have to get shot at for you to know where they are. So it becomes very apparent very quickly that there's a real risk. Mm-hmm. And of course, right about this time, the first waves are going through combat, and some of my buddies are getting killed and dying and coming home in boxes. So it hit home real quick that there's a real risk and a real cost, and the real possibility that it ends poorly. And by poorly, I mean you come home in a box, dead. But it never sort of occurred to me that there's sort of this in between. In my head, you either come home fine or you come home dead, and there's really not really talked about in the media. There's really not a lot of training for it, and it's there's really nothing out there, maybe more now, to address the injured, the injured in combat, the wounded in combat. And part of that, I guess, is you want to protect the privacy of those soldiers when they're at their most vulnerable. You want to protect their families when, the last thing you want to do is journalists knocking at a hospital room door. So there's this culture where you sort of don't talk about it, but the knock-on effect is you sort of don't plan for it when you're going out the door. But to answer your question, March 2009, it was my second tour to Afghanistan. We were, 10 days, 2 weeks from finishing the rotation. Like, I was literally planning on how drunk I was going to get in Cyprus the following week. So long story short, or to just go sideways a little bit, after the end of the tour, they usually send you some third location, what's called decompression. So if you imagine your gunfight mode, like kill or be killed, you're in combat, like your hair trigger, everything is, you're super aware of the dangers. So they got to send you somewhere else before they send you home, because then you send you home, people don't recognize you because you're in this strange, sort of weird, primal mode of fight or flight.
Right.
So it's really just a 3-day piss up. Like, let's be honest, you go and you get as just annihilated, obliterated as you can for 3 days. And maybe you do a sightseeing tour, or you just sit in the pool and just puke all over yourself for 3 days. But anyways, I was planning for my post-deployment decompression, and our last day of our major last battle group operation, one of the soldiers I was on patrol with, we're on foot patrol in some deep part somewhere, some unnamed village in the deep blackness of Afghanistan, and triggered an IED, an improvised explosive device. Killed 2 soldiers, our interpreter, and I was maybe 4 feet away when the bomb went off. Wow. Caved in my head, ripped apart my shoulder, my arm. Essentially, any part of my body that didn't have body armor on was just shot through and through. So I had shrapnel go in my lips and come out my ear.
Wow!
And
Holy shit!
Rip. Took about 1,000 stitches to put my face back together. Like the doctors were able to do dental surgery on me through the gaping hole in my face, from where the bomb had essentially peeled half my face from my skull. And strangely enough, the orthopedic surgeon or the dental surgeon, whatever surgeon did the repairs on my orbit, because it had been crushed completely, sort of told me after the fact that you're almost lucky that you lost an eye, because I was able to rebuild your skull from the inside. So they slid a titanium plate in through where my eye would be, inside my skull, and basically used that to rebuild the orbit.
This was I was reading a little bit about it, and this was like a 4-day surgery, and the doctors were actually taking shifts to continue the surgery for 4 straight days.
Yeah, it was.
That must
it was
have been
10 days, Landstuhl, Germany. So, I mean, we could go as big and narrow. I could talk about hours about like 3 seconds. Like we could sort of do a whole overview. But I'll give a bit of an overview, and we can sort of go back to the segments that stick out for me. So, bomb goes off, and I literally feel my head get caved in. I feel something go in my shoulder one side and come out the other. Anyways, we could talk about that, and it's a really crazy experience. If you ever been faced with danger, or you sort of understand that time either compresses or it stretches, so your perception of time goes all wonky, and I experienced that. And so some moments that were just literally a fraction of a second just seemed to go on forever. But bomb goes off. Wait for the ambush. The ambush never comes. And then the combat engineers and the medics just all start coming. And the combat engineers are there to make sure there's not secondary devices, because it's pretty well-established tactic that wherever you plant a bomb, you plant multiple others, with the intent that you get somebody
Multiple
with the first
people.
one, and then you get the first responders with the second. So really, really dirty tactics, but very effective. So the engineers got to make sure that whatever bomb was near us, first of all, it was rendered safe, and then make sure that there weren't any secondary devices. And then the medics and basically anybody who's first aid qualified just comes running on the scene, and then everybody knows what to do. Fortunately or unfortunately, we lost so many troops and took so many casualties that by the end of our tour, it was like clockwork. It was literally another Tuesday at the office, except obviously the impact of what was going on. So the soldiers knew what to do. The guys with machine guns went to the perimeters. They established outer cordons. My guys knew that I was out, so they jumped on the radio, started talking to the helicopters, requesting medical evacuation support. And so this is all happening, and like as professional as you can imagine, just I don't know, it's pretty
that's
awesome.
what you were
to see.
trained for, obviously, right?
Yeah, it's what we were trained for, and we'd unfortunately, like I said, had a lot of practice doing it. So it was just awesome to. I'd never imagined seeing it on the casualty side, but yeah, it was pretty amazing. So,
How do you deal with that stress now?
Man, I don't know that I react to stress that much. I work out more. I drink on occasion.
You don't think about it. You don't have flashbacks.
I have no
trauma.
So I knew going in that there was risk. So, maybe you read the Legion magazine article, but one of the quotes, I guess, that sort of rings true with people is that I try to equate it to, I've never met a good cook who's never been burnt in the kitchen.
You're right, yeah.
So to ask a cook how he deals with the trauma of getting burnt in the kitchen, like it's literally part of the job. Like I don't know, how do you deal with getting kicked in the face? Like you don't like it,
Yeah.
and you kick back harder. But I don't know, you don't retire. So I'm oversimplifying it. I don't know.
That's a really good attitude.
Well, actually, yeah, most soldiers
Well, it's
are
not an
like
attitude;
that.
it's reality.
Yeah, but most people can't deal with that and will never.
And this is my other question: why, like, I don't want to put it out there because I know we're going to get hate for this, but
Go ahead, Joe.
Don't.
Go ahead, Joe.
You know what I'm saying? Like, don't. There's no disrespect in what I'm asking. I just still don't understand. Like, a military vet, right? Like, you're a veteran. You call yourself a veteran.
Yep.
You know, you get the perks of being a veteran. But
Well, I don't know if there are too many.
well, you know what I mean, right? I mean, for me, a veteran is I don't know if that word should really imply or apply.
Yeah.
Because it's a job. You applied for that job. You knew what you're getting yourself into, right?
Yep.
And yet people still think that military is non-voluntary, like it's non-voluntary. Like World War I, World War II. If you go back to those wars, right?
Yep.
Could you imagine government knocked on your door, like my grandfather, knocked on the door, grabbed him by the arm, suited him up, and go to war? No training. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yep. Yep. But
That to me
the
is
veterans the volunteers had already been sent at that point.
that to me is a veteran
Yep.
because he had no choice. He didn't choose to go to the military. They grabbed him and they threw him in war with no training.
Yeah.
They taught you how many years before you actually were out there, you know, to hold that gun, to throw that, you know, like you have all the information.
You were well trained.
Well, in my case, but I was out there with no hook privates who were right out of basic training.
you were or you weren't?
They were, yeah. There were plenty of soldiers. Like there were, yeah. I mean, there were 19-year-old.
But who brought them there?
They volunteered.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they
so-
brought themselves there.
So.
Like, I don't want to be rude here or disrespectful, right?
I'll flip it on its ear though, right? So, the person who volunteers to do that, so they sacrifice certainly more pay doing something else. They get posted to places they don't want to be. They get posted to places where their spouses can't work. So, you know,
Yeah, but why do they do it?
to serve the country, to serve a greater good.
That's why they get respected.
To provide peace where, you know, there may not be. The short answer I like to give is we fight wars in places so that those wars don't get fought here. So if the bad guy was at the door, there are going to be people who answer that call and people that don't answer that call and people that run away. There's sort of three categories of people. And you know, for me, volunteer is anybody who's done anything. And that I try to use the widest definition I can.
But a volunteer, he's paid. He volunteered
really
himself.
Yeah,
volunteer,
but your
it's
grandfather
you
was
being-
paid also. He was paid the going rate for whatever rank he was at the time that he was. Absolutely.
In World War II?
Yeah, absolutely.
They did get a pension.
And he got a
actually.
post.
They got a pension after.
No, he got paid while he was there. He got paid the same as the volunteers got paid. He got the same bonuses as the volunteers. He got the same post-war benefits as the volunteers.
But he didn't volunteer.
Nope, that's correct.
He had no
So-
interest in
going to war.
going to war.
Yeah, but that's
Like I have no interest suiting up and go fight.
That's why you're not respected.
Well, that's fine.
But I think what Joe is trying to say is that why is there such a special treatment for veterans versus a firefighter, for example?
Like
Well, that's
police
not true.
officers.
That's not true. They get respected too. They get
Well,
they
to
get recognized.
some-
well,
to
look at the
some-
ones that have some good deeds. Look, let's face it. It's not
Every
easy
day-
to go out there with a rifle and say goodbye and go and protect your country. A lot of people say it, but they don't
Well,
do it.
firefighters go up, you know,
They
20,
do.
30
They
story
do,
buildings.
and that's why they get
Every day
respected.
out there.
That's why they get respected.
but
Same with police
but
officers.
they got respected on 9/11, Tony.
Well, not
but these guys
necessarily.
risk their
All-
lives every day.
Listen, every firefighter that I see, people waving, people like are giving the nod. They get respect because
Okay,
it's
so
a
how come
task.
cops, everybody spits on them?
Well, because they have a different task, but the ones
Well,
that do,
what's-
but hold on a sec, the ones that do a good deed always get rewarded. Look at what happened in the Parliament building a few years ago, where you know that ex-police
shooting.
officer, the shooting. There you go. I mean, that guy was a hero all of a sudden, right? Like, I mean, there's certain experiences. I'm just saying.
A cop does not get recognized like the military does.
Well, I think military.
Maybe the question out there is why do the soldiers get a special treatment, i.e. veteran, and you get the special treatment because
The police
you're a veteran?
officer walks into
You know,
a
the
building, they're not
Legion
standing
and,
up and-
everywhere you go.
and giving them a standing
the police
ovation.
officers or a firefighter or a
At best, they
doctor
got
or a
fucking
nurse
spat on.
or any other people who
On a
chose
good
those
day, you know what I
careers.
mean?
But it wasn't always like that. So when I joined in '97, and for anybody who knows the military at that point, it's sort of like mid to late, what's called the decade of darkness, after massive budget cuts. I was ordered not to wear my uniform in the streets. So I had to go to work in plain clothes, in civilian clothes.
That I remember.
Then put my uniform on because there was a real threat of violence.
It was an attack against you
Against
guys.
soldiers, you mean?
Against soldiers by the general population.
Yes.
By people like you and Joe and Gino, and like the army was trash. Canadian Forces writ large, but I speak for the army because I spent my career in the army. But like, man, I've had buddies who just like were coming out of university on their way to the drill hall to parade that night, so they just didn't have time. They put their uniform on, take the bus, and they were getting spit on.
And the reason is, what was happening at the time?
I mean, the perception of the military was that it was garbage, and there were a bunch of incidents in the 90s. So I'll admit openly that some of that was well deserved. But it's when you play politics with the army, it never ends well. Either they're put on a pedestal. To your point, Joe, we treat people that spend people that sign up when the basic training washed out, they get to call themselves a veteran.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I guess. Again, what's your definition? Well, they've
20 years, as long as they're 20 years in serving.
Not even. They got a service number. So basically, they enrolled. They had to swear.
Yeah.
The American version is swear allegiance.
Yeah.
They had to swear an oath to the crown. And even if they didn't make it through day one of basic training, they get status as a veteran. We could argue where to draw the line and stuff. And it's cyclical with time. So when I joined, you couldn't wear your uniform in the street.
I remember
because
that.
you were trashed. You were literally less than trash. You were going to get spit on, if not beaten. Okay, go back in time. That's a similar treatment that the Korean veterans got from the World War II vets. Because their argument was, well, World War II was way harder than Korea. My answer to that is, well, it depends when you were there. But, I mean, the Korean vets will tell you some stories.
It's like Vietnam.
Vietnam
was a slaughterhouse.
It was, at times, yeah, it was absolutely a slaughterhouse. And there were battles in the Korean conflict, Korean War, that were worse than anything that happened in World War II. But you couldn't get the World War II vets to recognize them to the point where they weren't even allowed into the legions. So, the answer is not an answer. What is a veteran and why do they get recognized? Well, it depends what you define as a veteran. And it depends on the day on who gets recognized. So, like, I haven't served my country in 3 years. For people to say thank you for your service, like, I got my thank you through my salary, through all the great experiences I got. I'm owed nothing. We can talk about Veterans Affairs and stuff, but I'm owed nothing from the general population. Like,
Because you understand there was a choice you made.
That's commendable that you're actually
yeah.
making that statement.
yeah, but
Well, because Gino, he
Well,
understood.
he also tried to get back in the army again, right?
yeah. So after I was injured, sorry, we're going to bounce all over this story, but after I was injured, some of my injuries, I mean, anybody who read my medical file was like, well, he's literally lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And he's too broken, too messed up to continue to be employed in the army. So they gave me my medical release papers and said, thank you, but you're going to be medically released because you're no longer fit for service. So
What'd you say?
Was that a slap in the face for you, do you think?
I'm allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you can swear. Joe swears all the time. We have to beep half the show out.
I said, go fuck yourselves. Like, after doing what I did and being through what I've done, even at the time, I'm going, even if I'm broken as I am right now, I was 30 years old at the time or whatever, still fit, is it relatively fit? I said, even broken in half the way I was probably still fit than the least fit soldiers in the Canadian Forces. And I still had something to contribute. So as a minimum, I could still do something. But within 4 months, 3.5 months of getting taken off life support, I was on the ice. So if you're on the ice,
That's incredible.
you could probably, it wasn't be long before I was doing
But your experience
50,
alone must
60 push-ups
account for
again.
something to have you back and at least teach some of those soldiers.
Yeah, so that's a great debate too. Like, the Army's job is to employ fit soldiers, send them to battle, fight Canada's wars, and that's it. The Army doesn't owe me anything. The Canadian Forces, if I get broken, the system is set up that the Army uses me, abuses me, either sends me home back into society, right? Go be part of the greater economy. Or if they break you in the process, they hand you over to Veterans Affairs Canada, and Veterans Affairs Canada is supposed to look after you. That's where it breaks. The system is absolutely broken, and I can go on long diatribes about why VAC fails to achieve their most fundamental mission. But at the end of the day, there's a huge gap between, once the Army breaks me and I can't do it anymore, that's it. They're an employer. They get a toolbox, right? They're a mechanic for Chev. If the mechanic at Chev, it's probably a bad analogy, but if the mechanic at Chev breaks a wrench, he goes to the tool crib and he gets a new wrench, and he hands in the broken one, and that's it. His tools all have to work. And someone else is responsible for filling that toolbox. The Army consumes the tools that's in his toolbox. And it's the recruiting system to replenish those sorts. If they come out broken, hand off to Veterans Affairs, move on to the next one. I joke around, but it's sort of universal truth. And in the Army, you know what they did with my uniform after I handed it in? They handed it to the next guy. They don't care about what and who fills the uniform. They just need somebody to move that uniform around, hold that rifle, point in the direction that they're told, and advance to contact.
It's a cult.
And yeah,
It is. They're fucking brainwashed. How many guys that actually can do what this guy did? What's the percentage? Think about it.
Well, I'm not sure what is
Well,
it.
even
Would
in
you
the
do
Army.
it? Would you do it?
Well, I actually wanted
You
to
wouldn't
sign
do
up
it,
for the
Gino.
Army when I
Don't
was
say
when I
you'd
was
do it.
17. I didn't want to sign up for the Army.
You
I
had
went
no
home.
choice.
Wait a
I
minute.
went home. I told my mom. My mom started crying.
No,
Gee,
wait a
you
minute.
had
Wait a
no
minute.
choice.
I'm
That
going
was
to- You
mandatory
signed up
in
for
Europe.
the Army for a
Yeah,
reason.
It was
You had a
mandatory in
choice.
Europe.
No, it wasn't.
I'm
He was
telling you.
here. Fuck.
I was here.
Okay.
It wasn't fucking Vancouver Island.
Yeah, no,
Why?
I
Why?
was here.
Why did you want to sign up for that?
Because like you, I thought it was interesting.
you didn't
I'm
wanna
going
go to
travel
school.
the world. I'm going to be taught.
You don't wanna go to
You know,
school.
it's going to be amazing.
They don't wanna go to school.
I literally thought for the free education, the world travel, because they literally advertise for you to join the
Yeah,
army.
it's a cult.
and they'll show you everything they will do for you.
called
right?
brainwash.
But remember, we're talking about in the 70s and 80s where basically there wasn't wars.
Yeah, exactly.
So you
Cold
went
War.
there to have a good time.
So my instructors who joined the Army in the 70s, all they talked about was how they were deployed to Germany and deployed to Europe. And the bases that you got deployed to depended on whether like they needed a right winger or a left defenseman, or if the softball team needed a catcher or a pitcher.
That's crazy.
Like
It's your father-in-law.
They went to Europe. Like, okay, let's call it what it is. They went to Europe to establish a human shield between the commies and the rest of the world. So yeah, they did training, they did military exercises, they maintained their equipment, but literally they were just meant to be a speed bump for the communists rolling through the Fulda Gap, and they were essentially early warning. And they were just happy for those troops. I'm being super ridiculous when I say this, but they were just happy for those troops to drink as much as they want, play as much sports as much as they want, and try to stay in as little trouble as they can with the locals. So the guys that went, and to your point, there was no conflict. It was the Cold War. There was no
Right.
actual shooting
Yes,
war.
exactly.
So what's an infantryman going to do? What's a tank commander going to do when there's no shooting war? He's going
Party.
to drink, play soccer, play hockey, and
Yeah.
fuck.
Okay,
really.
speaking
I mean,
about that, your most memorable moment, you got to have one or two. Share it with
Oh,
us.
I got a couple of gooders. Yeah. Okay. I think the highlight of my career, man, we're going to, hold on to your hats for this one. Okay. This is Afghanistan, 2008, 2009, probably 2009, February, roughly. We're going to go in an operation. We've sort of got some intelligence that there's some bad guys in a spot. Can't really talk about how we got that intelligence, but I had the eye in the sky for long, long hours. And anyways, we found some bad guys. We're going to roll in on them in the middle of the night. We were paired up with some sniper teams and November Company Combat Team from 3RCR. With that, we had a sniper detachment. So the combat team commander and I were basically tied at the hip. I was in his back pocket. I was his I was his fire support. He did artillery, helicopters, close air support, jets, B-1 bombers. Man, I'm forgetting some armed UAVs, Hellfires, Reapers, Predators. Like that's all for me at the end of the phone. So I'm the guy. I am the hand of God. They find the bad guys and I smash them like a fist. So I
Hey, Joe?
Fucking Rambo.
I send up two of my guys, so two guys out of my crew, artillery observer crew, with the snipers, and we send them in the middle of the night to provide overwatch for us as we walk in, because we're going deep in the Badlands, and they have early warning. Taliban have early warning systems, and they've got observers, and sometimes they pick kids to report back on whether the soldiers are coming near what's going on. But so we knew the area pretty well. So launched the snipers and my guys in the middle of the night, full, just like in the modern war movies, NVGs, and I've got Predator Reaper drones overhead. I've got a B-1B. Like a B-1B is like a massive supersonic bomber. They've got like 68 500-pound bombs on deck, and they can drop like 36 of them on GPS coordinates in one drop. This thing will annihilate a small city in a blink. And it's just sort of cruising there at whatever 27,000 feet and waiting for me to
That's insane.
tell them where and when.
Is that crazy?
So I've got the eye in the sky, and so we're watching. I'm literally telling them which alleyways to go down and which alleyways have like a rabbit, or not a rabbit dog, but wild dogs, feral dogs. So just walking through this village, they set up Overwatch. It's a relatively quiet night. We roll in 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, rose up. And just before we enter the objective area, the snipers come under contact, and like through a really coordinated, essentially a rolling ambush. And so these guys are on an overwatch position, so stuck on a roof, and there's only about a 6-inch sort of parapet on the roof, so they're literally ducking and like squishing as low as they can. And we had our interpreter Wally. He's the one who was killed when I was injured, and he was sort of yelling at me because he's got a little ICOM radio, and he can hear the radio traffic from the enemy. And he's really nervous, and he's never nervous. He's been in, like, those interpreters have been through more combat than the entire Canadian Armed Forces combined. Those guys have been there years doing the same thing. They were in firefights, gunfights. Some of the best ones were in gunfights 3 times a week for 5-6 years.
Jesus.
Yeah. Without a gun, which to me is the craziest part of all. They just sort of hang back, hide behind the good guys, and hope, like, fuck, it's not your day. So our Overwatch team basically eats a rolling ambush, and our Terp is losing his mind. And I've never seen him like this. And he's going, this is bad, it's bad, it's bad. They're not Arabs, and they're not Taliban. They're not Taliban, and they're I don't know if they're Arabs. And so what that means, the Taliban, he speaks Pashto or Dari, which is the local Afghan dialect. So if they're Afghans, they're Taliban. If they're Arabs, they're Syrians or Libyans, or they're, from somewhere else in the Middle East, and they're here in Afghanistan to conduct jihad against Americans. They've answered the call to war, so they're here to come and kill us. So they're just here to cause shit. And crazier than the jihadis. And the jihadis were, you get anywhere from farmers to previous special forces of like Iraqi Guard, or like you got Libyan Guard. Gaddafi's troops were there. Like, we were fighting anybody who could. So you fought from farmers with guns who sort of just sprayed and prayed and didn't know what they were doing, and fortunately or unfortunately, it was super easy to kill. Or you get some pretty hard dudes that knew how to play the game, and that's when it got a little spicy. But this batch, as soon as the Terp Wally came by with his radio, he held his radio to me, and I could distinctly hear they were speaking Russian.
Wow.
Yeah, they were Chechens, former like Spetsnaz, Russian Special Forces trained Chechens, and these guys were the real deal. And that was sort of my inclination. I knew right away. So first thing we do, drop artillery about 200 meters away. So when the artillery comes in, it just causes chaos. So if you've ever seen artillery or been close to it, it's 100-pound bombs flying in and exploding in the air, sort of haphazardly all over the place. It's relatively precise, but usually what happens when you start dropping artillery, because it's so deadly, the enemy ducks. They duck, and then they wait for a pause, and they usually run away, because they know that once they're pinned down by the enemy, we just maneuver around them and kill them. So the artillery usually pins them, and then they die. So as the artillery comes, they usually get the hell out of there, because they either get closer to us where our snipers are going to shoot them in the face, or they get pinned in the artillery. We go around them and smack them where they sit. These guys, and I knew right away these guys were bad dudes when the snipers reported that after the first rounds came in, all 6 or 8 of them basically got up and ran towards the good guys, towards the snipers.
Wow.
Because these guys knew and understood and had done it before to the point where they knew that I would only bring in the artillery so close to our own guys because that shit's dangerous and will kill indiscriminately. Good guy, bad guy, it doesn't care. It punches a hole through all the meat. So they knew that I would only do danger close procedures to a certain level and that if you get inside that range, you're safe. So essentially, if I can grab you by the collar, there's nobody to hit me in the back of the head because it's just too far away. So that's what these guys did. And not only, once they did that, then our guys started to realize they're all armed with like medium machine guns. So they're armed to the tits. And you could hear it. We're 150 meters away. We're just around the corner. And you can hear the RPKs and PKMs just like ripping. And they're disciplined with their fire. Anyways, all this to say, these guys were for real. Well trained, well equipped. The toughest dudes and I didn't even face them. I was around the corner. The toughest dudes that our guys faced the whole time we were in Afghanistan. So with the snipers, it was also, I forgot to mention this, but a small American detachment they were actually police advisors, like Afghan police advisors, but they were by trade Army Rangers, Army Recon Rangers. So some really bad dudes, actually. They were for real. Yeah, those guys were really, really amazing to train with. And they'd sent a detachment with our snipers and with my Overwatch guys as part of that night insertion because they were just keen to do the business. And Army Recon Rangers, you can't tell them they're not going in on recon. So in all of this, so the shooting is chaotic. The artillery is just starting to come in. And we hear there's a casualty. One of the American sergeants had taken 3 rounds through the femur. Broke his leg and started a femoral bleed. We didn't know any of this at the time, but so started hearing bits and pieces, putting the thing together. Okay, so the American guys had been through Iraq twice already, and they're telling me to just keep dropping the artillery closer, And I'm doing my calculations, and at this point, I'm dropping artillery 25 meters away. And you need to understand the lethal radius on this stuff is 350 meters.
Wow.
So, like, I'm dropping it well inside the danger radius. Like, they're essentially saying, like, shoot at the apple on my head with a shotgun, knowing that the shotgun has a spread. Like, you're going to catch them in the forehead. So,
God.
So I'm going, I can't drop it any closer. Like, I'm going to be aiming at you. I said, like, I've taken all the corrections out. There's no more drop corrections. And anyways, he's a buddy of mine, and so we had this dialogue and back and forth on radio. And he said, "Do it, buddy." Do it. And I understood right then that the enemy fire at this point was still more dangerous than the artillery coming down on him, and he was literally picking his poison. Get shot at by these insurgents,
Yeah,
for sure, or maybe get fragged by your own artillery, and they said, like, the math for them was simple. You dodge the artillery. You hope the artillery doesn't fall on you. But you're going to definitely die if these guys keep shooting at them. So that's what I did. I dropped the corrected out of it. And I mean, I'd done the correction so tight and I picked the right guns. And there's a bunch of technical stuff that I'm not going to get into because it'd mean nothing to nobody. At the end of the day, from post-blast analysis with all the Hellfires and everything we brought in, I brought in artillery 3 meters away from friendly soldiers, 3 meters, 10 feet away. And I've watched an artillery round pick up a pickup truck like the one that's out here from 10 feet away and chuck it 12 feet. And so I was able to bring in 100-pound explosions 3 meters away from friendlies. That's technically the coolest thing I ever did. So,
how many people did you kill doing that?
I think the number was 8. I killed 5 of them with artillery. The sniper said that the first of the last rounds, one of them hit a Chechen square in the chest, and it punched right through him and hit the ground before it exploded. So he had a 6-inch hole in his chest.
But 3 meters away, how many guys did you
none.
get?
Not a scratch.
Everybody walked away.
Yeah, well, the American sergeant who had 3 in his leg had to be carried, but yeah. So
But he survived it.
he survived. Yeah. So one dude took it right in the chest, and the second round apparently landed right between 2 guys and basically chopped them and blew him up in half.
So you witnessed all this.
I was literally around the corner,
And he's normal still.
The bullets were flying over my head.
That's insane.
Wow. Sounds
Normal.
like something out of a movie.
My 2 guys were on the
How's he
other
normal?
side of the wall. Yeah,
It's
so
normal. You could talk about it. Most people can't do that.
But he
you know?
chose to go there. So
I
how is he
know,
normal?
but again, it's not that easy. But
It's like you. If you can
Not
can
that-
you ever be a heart surgeon?
a heart surgeon? No, probably not.
No, because you got to open that guy up. You got to
Yeah.
cut his rib cage and then pull out the heart, right? But it takes a special person to do what he does, right?
Yeah, that's why it's great to share these
The
experiences.
guys that have the PS, whatever fuck you call it,
PTSD.
yeah, those are people that are not ready for that shit. They just go
You
thinking.
suffer from PSD?
no,
Imagine,
So
because he's that guy.
I
This
have-
guy's like
oh,
Rambo.
man.
Fuck.
We'll talk about you want strong opinions? All right, strong unpopular opinions. Okay, well, first the fact PTSD is not recognized in the American Psychological Association manual, and basically there's a manual that outlines every psychological disease known to man, and so PTSD is not a thing. It's a
It's psychological thing.
it's an invention in the media.
What about mental health? What about mental
So
health?
mental health is real. Don't get me
Okay,
wrong. I'm
okay.
just saying PTSD is not an actual diagnosis.
Right.
So when people say PTSD, I have PTSD. Okay, I mean I have 2 unicorns. Like it's fucking irrelevant. Like it's not a real thing. Okay.
So you're saying that Canada, because there is a diagnosis of people who have PTSD.
No,
No,
it's
there's
not
no
a
such
diagnosis.
thing.
There's no such thing.
He just
So
told
are
you.
you saying this is a media thing? That
Yeah,
put
yeah.
it, that put
PTSD
in-
is a media.
Yes.
It's a media invented expression.
It's like women
Now-
when they fucking give birth. Some
Now-
of them say they have that what do they call that?
Postpartum.
Yeah,
Postpartum.
fuck, that's bullshit. Fuck.
So now,
They just want to be fucking pampered.
in the last 10
Need
years,
attention seekers.
Can't say that. Joe.
It
Okay,
may have
well, I
made it
said
in
it
the
here.
APA.
It said, fuck. What do you want me to do? Erase it?
Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
But Joe, you're on the money on something. You're absolutely like you hit it right on the head.
Listen, for me, it's simple. You chose a career. You went and do it. What did you expect? You're dressed up. You're dressed up to kill. You're trained to kill.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
So
What are you expecting?
I'm
Fucking
on
planting flowers?
there could be something such like when you're seeing a person die, being shot, cut to pieces. It's going to fuck up with your brain. Are
No,
you
it
joking?
doesn't. It doesn't.
It
They're
does.
trained
Justin,
for that.
Tell us,
I
it doesn't
know,
fuck
but
up
it-
with your brain.
Hey, they're trained for that shit. These guys watch movies every day how to kill
But
people.
not all of them are
Come
the
on.
same, though.
That they don't belong there. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but you don't know that till you get it. Some people want to experience it, and then
Listen,
they learn from that
they
experience.
experience it through fucking movies, through training.
I know,
they
but
experience
how many
it.
times have you heard that expression? You know, I did it. It wasn't for me, but you wanted to do it, right?
Yeah, but they've seen it in training. These guys see
Seeing
it in
and doing
training.
are two different things. I've seen a lot of things too. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and do it.
Exactly. That's why a lot of them walk out.
But if I
Am I right or
suggest,
am I wrong, Justin?
you're absolutely both on the money.
Listen, it's the same thing. Like you said about fighting, not everybody can
No.
fight too. You do have to be a different breed. But
exactly.
psychologically, it does. You think of some stuff.
Well,
it
it's
does
not cut out for you.
Can you tell us that it fucks with your brain when you're seeing bodies torn apart,
No.
Justin? Or you just go
Well,
home and you
maybe
say, oh,
it-
just another day on the job. Are you joking right now?
Answer that question.
So, okay, I'll answer that question. No, I am happy to see body part. I don't care. No, I'm not happy. It's irrelevant to me. It's
It's like a surgeon.
It's part of the job. It goes with the
yeah,
territory.
yeah.
That's
A
what you're
surgeon
saying.
who's scared of
So,
blood.
hold
Can
on
he be a
second. So
surgeon?
you're seeing
No.
bodies torn apart. You go home. Hey, honey, I'm home.
Gino, I'll
not-
make this easy for you.
Well, let's talk to the guy
A
who's
doctor,
experienced
a
this.
fucking surgeon, a surgeon
it's not
is
that
scared
easy,
of
Gino.
blood. How can he be a surgeon? He
not-
faints of blood. Like this guy puts fucking band-aids on paper cut. Let's be serious.
It's not that easy. So okay, it doesn't.
You're not
happen
made for
overnight.
that.
It doesn't happen overnight, and
Exactly.
it
You
doesn't get turned
can't
off
just
overnight.
switch it on and off.
But it switches pretty quickly. Okay, so it does. There's an adaptation phase, right? The first time you're in a gunfight, it's the craziest thing you've ever been in. The third time you're in a gunfight, you're like, oh, this is like that's last Tuesday. The 60th gunfight you've been in, you're like, man, when do I go home? Like literally, like.
Good point.
In my last gunfight, my heart rate didn't raise over 65. I was getting shot at, and the bullets were blowing up by my feet. because it's literally another day at the office.
Wow.
Well, and it's not, it's irrational, but it's your body's defense mechanism. By the time you're in your 10th gunfight and you come out of it the other end, you've concluded, irrationally maybe, you've concluded that you're going to get shot at and you're going to go home and have steak for dinner. Like, it's just, that's what it is. Now, until the day that you don't come home. Like, so the day that it does.
Which you won't know when you come home because you're gone.
So I'm with Team Joe in the sense that you don't know, like, you joined the freaking army, man. What
are you expecting?
Okay,
now,
so.
But except, let me finish. Except in the army, there are plumbers. There are truck drivers.
Yeah.
There are cooks.
Yeah.
So those people don't expect to be in a gunfight.
To be killed.
Yeah.
Those people expect to feed the people who do
That's correct.
the killing. So,
Right.
So in the army, there's combat arms and there's combat support and there's sort of everything else. So the combat arm, like, there's definitely a hierarchy in the army, like, for better or for worse.
Yeah, of course.
There are the guys and girls who do the killing.
Right.
There are those who are, like, right there bridging that gap.
Right.
They're the communicators, anyways, there's all kinds of in between trade. And then there's sort of the logistic train behind it. The people that bring the bullets and the beans. Like, I need ammo to shoot bad guys. Well, the guy that's bringing me ammo
Doesn't
is not
see that shit.
necessarily expecting to get in a gunfight.
But he could.
Well, I mean, okay, but he's not expecting it. Like,
Not like the soldier.
Traffic cop gives tickets. Right? Then there's
But he-
tactical. They join the SWAT. They join tactical. Tactical, what does he expect? To give out tickets? He's going
So, but-
hostages. He's
but-
going and see all that shit.
but absolutely to Tony's point, a lot of people join, when do they recruit people to the army? 17, 18, 19, 20 years
Young.
old.
Right.
When you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? You've got this sort of ego and testosterone
Yeah.
flowing through
Exactly.
your veins and
Good
you're
point.
fucking bigger, tougher than you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody thinks that the baddest dude on the street, what's the Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has a plan, it'll get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Except there's no saying no. You're there. So if your first gunfight, you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
No matter how much training you give me, no matter how much.
Not made for you.
Yeah, but the problem is they got
They gotta fight it, and they
got
gotta-
180 more days of that.
Yeah.
60 more gunfights.
Yeah.
So those guys and girls are going out on edge, hating their lives, wondering if the next one's going to get them, and they come back just fucked and frazzled.
Done.
So
Wow.
so that's how both occur. Both occur. Now, yeah, I mean that's.
So there are people who come
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Totally
No,
fucked
plenty,
up.
plenty. And so then and then we have these discussions at the bars and the legions and whatnot over, like, well, who's
got PTSD
who's an
today?
asshole and who's who's justified and how fucked up they are, and it's just ridiculous. You never win that argument.
So
Because,
there are
okay,
some extremists, though, right?
Okay,
Are they
well,
not?
so I'll tell. Okay, let's. I did this comparison. I knew a cook who never left Kandahar Airfield, which is the major base. Never left the base. I mean, they had Tim Hortons there. They had an outdoor hockey rink. Guy Lafleur came and played ball hockey with these guys.
Oh, wow.
Gym, 24/7, food 24. Like, it's not great. You're in the fucking end of the
middle,
universe,
yeah.
but it's relatively comfortable. No gunfights. Never been shot at. One rocket landed sort of near where they sleep. I was in, 60, 70 gunfights, doesn't matter. Outside the wire,
Right.
120 out of 180 day, like, doesn't matter. I did the business. So that cook is fucked up, legitimately. Like, I've had conversations with it. It's a cook that used to work for me. That cook is a mess. Can't go back to work. Like,
Why?
Why? Because
The bomb scared him.
Hold on. No, hold on a second. He never had a gunfight.
Yes,
Everyone
he
was
just
dressed
said
up
the
to go
bomb
and kill
came
him.
close
Just
to
the bomb
them.
came close to
Fuck,
them.
you don't pay attention.
I did hear that part of
You
it.
did.
So
So
there it
You're
is.
saying that
We
a
only
bomb
have a
that
few
was-
minutes left, so we got a few questions. So let him
Okay.
finish here, because we only got a few minutes left.
Okay, so it's what that cook was prepared to do or not do. He was not prepared to go in gunfire. And so when a bomb went off nearby, it fucking hit him like a Mike Tyson right hook. Like, it
Scared him.
It floored him. It floored him. Me, I took one on the chin. I managed to walk it off. In fairness, a lot of the reason why I'm okay today is I get to do most everything I did before. I'm probably not as handsome as I used to be, and can't see my left-hand blind spot when I'm driving. So, if you see my car out there on the road, give me a wide berth. But I mean, I'm still on the ice. I still get to do the same thing I always enjoy to do, maybe with a bit more difficulty. I've since had 3 kids, but also for me, it was just, it's par for the course, man. But it's all about your mentality. If you're prepared to do it, and if you're well trained to do it,
that's what you talk about all the time, Tony.
Yeah,
about
so
being-
we're gonna have 3 quick questions because we run out of time.
Let me give you my advice to everybody who's struggling with
Yeah.
any kind of mental health.
Yeah.
Real quick, and this is right up your alley. There's really only 3 or 4 things you got to do to at least help get your mental health in the right direction. Sleep well, eat well, exercise hard, drink and smoke a bit less. And
You do
it's
none
not-
of those, Gino. You have a problem.
I do all of them.
And you don't have to be
I do all
perfect
of
there.
them.
No, you don't. You
Except
don't-
I don't sleep well.
You don't sleep well. What was it? You don't eat
Exercise
the greatest.
hard.
You don't exercise hard.
I
Sleep
exercise.
well,
No, you
eat
don't.
well,
I
drink
don't
and
sleep
smoke
well. The
less.
only thing I don't do is no, I don't sleep well.
Okay.
That's my only issue.
All right. So we got.
And trust me, I drink lots, so I make up with the
We'll
other
give you
3.
3
How about a
questions.
scotch or 2 once in a while?
A whole bottle.
3 questions. So save your questions. You got a question?
I'm good.
Okay. So my question is, with all this experience that you've had in the military, you see all these obstacles in life. You see the goods, the bads. You got kids. You got people out there complaining. So with all the experience that you've occurred in the military, how has that shaped Justin, the new Justin, as a human in this world?
Well, I mean, it's exactly who I am. It's hard. It's impossible to divorce what I've done in the Army from who I am. I literally wore, until 2 years ago, I wore a uniform my entire adult life. I turned 18, I was in the Army. So it's literally who I am. The last 2 years have been tough. Well, tough. It's been a bit of a challenge to adjust because it's not my Army anymore. I've had to turn it over to the kids. And it's weird to say that at 43 years old, saying I'm retired and I'm done. But it's taken a couple of years, but I finally adjusted to the fact that it's not my place to defend Canada anymore. I'm no longer the baddest soldier on the battlefield. There are guys that are younger, fitter, with more energy than me and gals too. And so now it's their turn. And really, that's it. I'm not as good anymore as the new generation. It's hard to say that at 43, but that's just how it is. My time has passed, and so it's about what's next. And really, that's what it's been my whole life. What's next? What's next? Get hurt? What's next? Get better? What's next? Get out of the Army? What's next? You saw I showed up here with my dirt bike on my hitch mount. That's what's next for me. Is what's the next adventure? I'm already planning my next ski trip to Denver. So,
Wow.
Great attitude. Question, Gino.
Yeah, I
Your
do.
question.
First of all, I'm so impressed with your life in general. Everything you went through. It's not everybody can really.
He uplifted you,
I don't
right?
I don't want to use brag, but it's not something easy. So I have a 2-part question. First of all, everything you went through during the Army from 18 years old to right up to now, everything you went through, would you do it again? And if so, why would you? And if not, why would you not?
Easiest question for me to answer, and probably the most surprising answer. I would do it all again. So I had one bad day in 25 years in the Army.
Wow.
Not all the rest of it was great, but on the whole, way better than bad. I mean, I've literally been to see the world at someone else's expense. I've met people around the world. I've got friends all over the world. I've got experiences like no other. I mean, you guys all get to share something and contribute something in different ways. And I get to sit around, like this with you guys or over a beer and trade stories for stories. And
Wow.
We need some beer after this for sure.
it's really all about the experiences. And, part of it too is I was never afraid to fail because you learn from failure. You don't learn from success.
That's great.
This is
great
the
ending.
man here.
Joe?
I'm so impressed with
Fantastic.
you, Justin.
Well, on that note, that concludes our episode of Flex and Facts. We're going to have you back, Justin.
Anytime.
That was
Wow.
amazing information. And there's also be a link down below for people that have any questions, any links to some more of your stories. And till next time, you good listener, that's it for Flex and Facts.